Enraged, Wallace pounded the ATM. He was in a sweat, desperate for a fix. He thought for a moment, hailed a cab, and headed off into the night. Wallace showed up at the apartment of his friend, Lamar Squeaky Woods, who he expected to be at work. Woods was a friend of Wallace, and he and Wallace would hang out often in their free time. Woods lived at the Lake Apartments in East Charlotte with his 18-year-old girlfriend, Brandy Henderson. She had worked with Woods and Wallace at the Golden Corral. Wallace planned to rob, rape, and murder Henderson. Wallace rapped on the door of Woods' apartment and was surprised to see Woods answer. Brandy was at work, Woods told him. He was late for work too and had to leave. Wallace turned around and walked away, anxious, frustrated. He still needed money for a fix. He remembered that he knew someone else who lived in the apartment complex, 24-year-old Betty Baucom. Baucom knew that Wallace was the friend of the boyfriend of her girlfriend, Brandy Henderson, and she was more than happy to let Wallace use the phone. When Baucom turned around to let Wallace into her apartment, Wallace grabbed and started to choke her. He demanded that she give him the alarm code and safe combination at the Bojangles, where she worked as the assistant manager. Baucom resisted for nearly 30 minutes as Wallace got increasingly angry. Finally, Baucom surrendered the information, and Wallace stopped choking her. He took the money from Baucom's purse, but was disappointed at the amount. Then he raped her. Afterward, Wallace told Baucom to get dressed, and then strangled her to death. The next day, Wallace brazenly returned to Baucom's apartment and took her VCR, checking to make sure she was still dead. Then he left Baucom's apartment and took her car, ditching it in a parking lot a few miles away. He wiped the steering wheel, seats, door handles, the interior, and most of the exterior clean of fingerprints. Wallace caught a cab. Trekking back to his apartment, he was feeling smug about himself. He had got his drug fix while continuing to outsmart the police. The man who had become known as the Taco Bell Strangler had thought of everything, or so he thought. The one thing he had forgotten, to wipe clean the finger and palm prints from Baucom's car trunk. 1. Bad beginning. Henry Wallace would have few breaks in his early life. Many of the problems he faced later in life would stem from the problems and challenges he encountered in his childhood and teen years. Wallace's troubled youth surprised many in Barnwell who grew up with or came to know the amiable young boy who was always ready to listen or to give a helping hand when needed. Ouida Swan Dest, who went to high school with Henry and served on the school's cheerleading squad, says she knew little about Wallace's impoverished background at the time of their association, but today wonders how Wallace could appear so upbeat and positive when he came to school with such a dysfunctional background. He was just such a nice boy and so comfortable to be around, Dest recalled. He was even allowed to pick up and drive the kids to school in the school bus. That's how much he was trusted. Indeed, Wallace received a Certificate of Merit for having operated a school bus for the 1982-83 year with an excellent record. After Wallace graduated from Barnwell High School, Principal W. Reed Swan wrote a character reference on his behalf regarding his conduct while at the school. Swan lauded Wallace for never being involved in incidents of an aggressive or hostile nature, was well liked by his peers, and was supportive of the high school program. Not all of Barnwell was impressed with Wallace, though. Aaliyah Thomas Cole of Barnwell dated Wallace from 1989 to 1990, and she recalled how he was a gentle, generous, and emotionally needy boyfriend who lavished her with attention and gifts. But she came to see Wallace as being a phony, elaborating, he could adapt himself to any situation. It was just a farce because I had never seen a man who could cry at the drop of a dime. Unfortunately, many women never saw past the charming facade, and they would pay for their lack of perception with their lives. Henry Louis Wallace was a chameleon in the worst possible way, a sadistic serial killer. Henry Wallace was born dirt poor on November